This is one I've been looking forward to making for a long time, basically since we started this YouTube channel. What we're going over today is how we plan our around the world trip, how we plan our gap year, the thing that we use to get a budget, to get a number out at the end to figure out how much money we need to save up to go on this big trip, this big adventure that we've been wanting to do for so long.
Two things that Josh loves the most: financial planning, travel.
I'm going to walk you through this spreadsheet, this tool that I created to help me budget my past 3 around the world trips. And on each of these trips, this budget has been pretty much accurate.
As you can see here, I have a dorm room that I'm staying in. I have all 3 beds just to myself right there.
You can't really account for everything, but you can get a general sense of how much you need to save up before you leave, so you can go on this trip and come home with at least some amount of money in your pocket. Probably not a lot if you're doing the trip right, but some amount. Let's get started. We're going to be hopping back and forth between this camera and this screen recording, so as it goes back and forth, don't worry, we're still here and still talking. This is the spreadsheet right here, and all you need to do to start is put in 2 pieces of information. The first of which is the date that you're leaving on your trip. For us, this is pretty easy. We're planning on leaving July 6, 2021.
Crossing fingers.
And how much money do you think you'll have saved up before you leave? This is just to give the spreadsheet a general idea of how much money you have, what your savings are like. So for us, since we already know the answer to this question, we're going to put in $30,000. This is our target. This is what we're shooting for to spend on this trip. This is how much we've saved up already. For you, you might just throw a number in there, whatever you think you might be able to get together. And as we start working through the spreadsheet and putting in all the information and all the data and everything like that, you'll see why this number is important. Just make a guess.
If you don't know this number right off the top of your head, it might help to look back at some of your past trips. So if you've ever taken a 1-week or a 2-week vacation, figure out how much you allotted for that vacation, how much you spent in total. And if you're looking to take a longer trip, even a 1-year-long trip, then do some math to figure out how much, based on that history, do I need to X that by to get to a whole year.
The whole point of this tool is to help you figure out the most precise number that we can get to give us expectations of how much each city costs, how much each flight is going to cost, all this stuff added together to know where we need to cut back to be able to make our budget work. For some cities, we're probably going to be staying in nice hostels. And then for other cities where accommodation's a little bit cheaper, we're probably going to be staying in hotels. We're not exactly mega budget travelers, as in some people would look at this amount of money, $30,000 for 2 people for a year, and they'd be like, that is an incredibly huge amount of money. I could travel for 93 years on this amount of money. This is what's comfortable for us, and the type of travel is comfortable for us. It's going to be different for everyone. We're not here to judge the end result. We just want to help you get to the number so that way you know how much you have to save up to do the trip that you want to do.
We're here to tell you, you do you.
You do you.
Live and let live.
Exactly. We're going to start here with our trip. We're going to build out our trip live in front of you here of the one that we want to take. We're going to show you the first 3 or 4 cities, build those out, and tell you our full thought process of every one of these categories that you're going to see. And then once we finish up with that, we're just going to speed the video up like crazy and run through it and then talk through all of these kind of smaller decisions that we made along the way and then show you the final product. All right, let's go. At the top here on this travel budget planner is the destination, and this is just where you're traveling to. So for us, our first destination is going to be Osaka, Japan. This is where we're starting on our trip. Getting there costs, right? So this is saying how much does it cost to get from the previous destination, which for us is Minneapolis, to this new one, Osaka. Accommodation, how much is your accommodation expenses per night at this place? Your daily costs. This one's a little more nebulous. So your daily costs are everything that you would spend on a normal day there. So subway tickets, meals, groceries, any activities that you might do, things like that. And you're trying to average this out over a day. Long-term costs. This is a cost that's spread out over all the days that you're staying in this destination. So let's say you're renting a car when you go to Osaka for 7 days. What you would do is you would take this full amount, like let's say the car costs $500. You would then put that into here. And then that would spread it out over the amount of days that you're there to make sure that you're still keeping under your daily cost, to make sure that you're on target with how much you need to spend.
This would also work for things like if you're buying a rail pass that covers 21 days or more. Or let's say you signed up for a surf camp in the Philippines like we're hoping to do sometime this year. That's a big chunk of cost that's going to be spread out over the course of a month. So this is where all of that fits in.
Next one, days. How many days are you going to be in the destination? So for us in Osaka, we're going to spend 5 days there. I can fill that in right now. These things over here in this kind of palish yellow color, these are the things that we don't have to edit at all. These are just automatically calculated. So what this shows is how much is our total in this destination right here. What's our arrival date? What's the first day that we get there? And then our money countdown. So this is an important field. This slowly counts down the money based upon all the addition of all the rest of the fields here to show you how much money you have left on your trip. This is a good indication as we're going along to say maybe I need to cut out a couple cities, or maybe I need to go somewhere cheaper, or maybe I can spend even more money than I thought. Next one is notes. These are just some notes to keep track of as you're going through all of this. So for this first one, I know that we are going to spend American Airlines miles to get to Osaka. So I'm just gonna put that in, American Airlines miles. And that's just a note from me to remind me as to why my getting there costs, my flight to there is gonna be so cheap.
An additional note that Josh forgot to mention, but a note for Lisa, is that we are not only flying on American Airlines to Osaka, but we got first class seats. And that's a note to get me excited for our trip. So I'm going to add here, first class.
You're doing great. Now that we're here, we're going to start filling this thing in to Osaka from left to right, okay? So let's say that you were just paying money, paying real actual cash and not points for this. You would go to flights.google.com. You would go from Minneapolis to
Osaka.
Osaka. And then you pick your date. Go on through July 6th. Cool. So it looks like, I don't know, averaging out all these, looks like about $750. But we're probably going to take the cheapest one, so we'll say $705. All right, $705. So that's one way to look at how much the flight would cost. We happen to have a lot of frequent flyer miles accumulated, so I'm going to show you that process of looking for a flight. All right, head on over to American Airlines. We're going one way. We're redeeming some miles. We got 2 people from MSP to Osaka, departing July 6th. All right, checking this out. So this looks like a great flight, and this per person is going to cost us 60,000 miles plus $5.60. So the total is 120,000 miles plus only $11.20, which is great. So we're going to go on back here, change this to $11.20, and we're going to change this to 120K American Airlines miles. Now, coming up soon in one of these Travel Thursday videos, I'm going to go through how to accumulate a bunch of points so that you can travel mostly for free, or at least get most of your flights paid for by all these points that we're going to be accumulating. So I'll show you how to do that. It's coming soon. Accommodation. So for Osaka, we're going to start looking at Agoda. I know that Agoda is really good in Southeast Asia, so I'm going to start there. You could also use Booking.com or Kayak or anything else that you could really find on the internet to book this. I think for this one, we're going to start looking at hotels, and then maybe we'll start looking around at some other things. So it's looking like hotels are around, you know,
50 to 60 bucks.
50 to 60 bucks, right? So let's check out Hostels to see if those are any cheaper. They might be. This number on Hostel World shows up a lot. And what it essentially means is that they don't have any private rooms available. They will occasionally put these insanely high numbers. But if we just keep poking around in here, we're seeing privates from like 40, 50. So maybe that $50 number is pretty right. About 50 bucks is what we're going to spend. We're going to stay not at a super budget hostel accommodation, but we're going to stay at a kind of nice hotel or a boutique kind of smaller hotel is what we're hoping for. Daily costs. We are going to look at Osaka cost of living. And what this will bring up is probably Numbeo or some other website like this that'll give you a better idea of how much a meal at an inexpensive restaurant costs. So this is 800 yen. So we're just going to pop 800 Japanese yen to USD. See how much that is? It's like 7 or 8 bucks for an inexpensive restaurant, right? So we're probably going to be eating out some, and we're probably going to be cooking in some or buying some other things. We have 3 of those meals per day. For 2 of us, that means at least one of them we're going to eat out, so that's like 14 bucks. We're probably going to have to eat at a convenience store or grocery store or buy something a little more inexpensive.
Like a musubi for like $2.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with that. I love grab-and-go foods.
And remember, since we're traveling for a whole year, we don't necessarily have to cram in a restaurant meal for every single time that we go out anywhere, right? This is we're playing the long game. I'm going to say we're going to spend about $30 a day just on food. And then if you'll notice in here, there are some other things such as like activities, tours. I happen to know that in Osaka, a lot of things are free that you can go and see. And honestly, just walking around the city is amazing. So I'm going to budget us about $10 more per day to get on the subway, go and see something, maybe get an entrance to a museum or something like that. We have completed one city. We are spending $961 in this city over 5 days. We're going to move on to the next place. So from Osaka, where do we want to go?
Do we want to go to a different city?
All right, I think from here, I remember us talking about Fukuoka. Fukuoka is all the way over here, and I remember this being a really cool area that I really want to show you. I mean, just look at this.
I've never been there before.
Beautiful park, big bustling city, lots of fun stuff to do. All right, so let's put in Fukuoka, and we'll go from there. All right, getting there costs. We're going to go back to Google Flights, and we are going to say one way from Osaka to Fukuoka, Japan, on the date that we want.
Ooh.
That's really cheap.
$45.
So $45 per person. Okay, now let's compare that against trains. Now I know trains are a really big deal in Japan. So we should at least see how much it costs. The best place to find how much a train ticket would cost in Japan is Hyperdia. This is kind of the baseline website that you can use for every type of transportation in Japan, but specifically for trains. This is where you're going to get all the best information for this.
It's a little basic, kind of like Craigslist, but it works.
All right, so it looks like this is going to cost 16,190 yen per person. So we're just going to look up how much that costs. 150 bucks per person. Not even close. All right, so we're flying. Excellent. Our getting there cost 90 bucks. Accommodation. Same thing as before. We're going to head over to Agoda. And we're going to open up Hostel World and see what kind of stuff we can get. Yeah, let's go 3 days. That sounds good. Looks to be about the same price.
30s.
Maybe just a little cheaper.
Like $40 a night, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, some that are really expensive. Hilton.
Yeah, so here's some cheap ones, some expensive ones. Again, we're just going through all these steps one by one just to show you how we do all of this. You'll be able to work a lot faster than we are because we're explaining it and doing it at the same time. I always argue that one should be conservative, as in like, put the higher number out of whichever ones you got. You want to make sure that you have enough money to finish out your trip. And the only way to do that is to kind of overestimate a little bit and just assume that some surprises are going to come up. So, 45 bucks. All right, daily costs here. I would imagine that it's about the same.
800 yen. Yeah, about
For a
the
meal
same
at an
for a
expensive
meal.
restaurant, and it looks like
Transportation.
groceries are more or less the same. So I think maybe like 30 bucks a day we'll be able to get along on. Long-term costs, I'm going to say 0 for here and 0 for here. We're not renting anything. There's nothing kind of happening over a longer period of time, so we're out for there.
All of our transportation costs are covered in the daily costs because likely we'll just be walking or taking the train everywhere.
Right.
And the train will likely be 1 or 2 day passes.
Yeah, exactly. From here, let's go to Nagasaki, because that's kind of close.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's the museum in Nagasaki,
Yes.
right, which I think everybody should go to. But I also remember there being this awesome onsen. So an onsen is a natural, like lava heated from way under the earth. This hot water comes up, and they make a hot tub essentially out of it. There are a couple of rules with onsens. The first of which is that you have to be totally naked. They split you up by gender, so they'll have like a women's onsen and a men's onsen, and then each of them will go into their separate locker rooms and get naked and then go and hang out. That takes a little bit of time to get used to, but the view and how relaxed you feel, and it's just like, it's such a perfect way to end a day. Remember there being this amazing onsen overlooking, yes, this is the one. All right, so let's say we're going to Nagasaki. Let's check out our Google Maps here. Google roughly knows how much a train ticket should cost between these two places. 45 bucks per person, so about the same as the other one.
And it's only about a 2-hour train ride. So for places that are super long distance from each other, like Osaka and Fukuoka, where you might even fly to the place, it's probably best to use Hyperdia. But for cities or even neighborhoods within a certain city, it's always helpful to use Google Maps. And in fact, it's quite easy to use.
Yeah, really easy to use, and it'll give you an answer like that. Accommodation in Nagasaki, same thing as before. We're heading to Agoda, and we're seeing how much things cost. 55.
50. So they're a little bit more expensive
Yeah,
than the last few
Nagasaki's
places.
just a little pricier.
Probably we're going with a hotel for like 60 bucks a night.
Yeah. We're just going to speed up the video to mega speed, fill out the rest of this for the rest of our trip. And you'll see it go by super fast, but then we're going to talk at the end what the end results look like. Be right back. Alright, we're just at the point where we're about to go to a different country, like leave Japan and go somewhere else. Google Flights is this amazing feature where you can just say where you're going from, and then just put in nothing for where you're going to. And it'll give you the prices for everything around it, so you can kind of figure out what's cheap and what's really expensive and work with it like that.
For those of you who've never used this feature before, it's called the Explore tab within Google Flights. It's super awesome. Like Josh said, just fill in where you're starting off, and then it'll pull up all these amazing places that you can go to. Honestly, it makes me feel like I can go anywhere, and it helps me to dream big.
Yeah, exactly. So right now it looks like it's only $52 during the dates we want to go to Seoul. So that seems like a good next stop. Okay, spreadsheet is finished, but no round-the-world trip planning is complete without a map. So we're gonna build that real quick. It'll happen in a snap. Don't try to do all this in one day. If you're trying to plan your round-the-world trip, unless you're as excited about it as I am, which, you know, maybe you are. I hope you are. Take a couple of days to do this. Really think through, Google through all the different locations you want to do, things like that. Lisa and I have talked about this before, so we know roughly the type of experience we want to have.
Yeah. We intentionally left a couple of weeks unplanned because we like to be able to be in a place and say, hey, I really like this place. Let's stay longer. Or, I don't like this place at all. Let's peace out.
I think this is really important, especially for a long trip like this. You're going to change your mind while you're on this trip. No question about it. You're going to change your mind on your gap year. You're going to meet friends in a hotel or a hostel somewhere who are going to be like, hey, let's go to this cool new place that you've never heard of. And you're going to want to say yes and not stop everything. Go, sorry, no, I have this plan and we have to leave in 4 days to go to Rome. And
can't be friends.
Can't hang out with you.
Bye.
Bye.
You got to be a little bit reasonable when it comes to this. Leave some days open, leave some days unplanned. Let's go over the final numbers here. So for this spreadsheet, our final numbers are a trip length of 334 days away. Remember, we're leaving 30 days open. We're at $27,785 for the two of us to travel this whole time. We're spending some on a camper van in Australia, long-term costs, some rental cars, some other things to get around. Daily costs are adding up to about $9,000. Accommodation is over half of our expenses. This is pretty typical. You're going to spend most of your money on accommodation. If you can figure out how to cut this part down, as in by getting more hotel points, which again we're going to talk about later, you can save a lot of money on a trip. And then just for flights and trains and everything else, it's just going to cost a little bit under $5,000.
I would also just like to say that looking at these numbers might shock you initially. $14,000 in a year on where you're staying, accommodations. But then I had to step back and think, how much we paid for rent in California. It adds up, and you add that up for 12 months. It's not too different. In fact, I think traveling might be cheaper.
That's how we plan and budget for a trip like this. So now we have a target. Now we know that
How much we need to save.
Yeah, before we leave, we got to make this amount of money appear, and probably a little bit extra. Thanks so much for watching, and we really hope this was helpful. And if you have questions about any of the particulars in this video, anything like that, please let us know, and we'll answer it as best we can. For our next Travel Thursday, we're going to go over whether or not the JR, the Japan Rail Pass, is still worth it in 2021.
Would we recommend it?
It's this kind of expensive pass that allows you to go on any train in all of Japan, and we're going to figure out if it's still a good deal or not, especially with how cheap those flights were.
We'll see.
We'll see. Catch you in the next one.
Travel Thursday, Travel Thursday. See you next time.
Catch you in the next one. Thanks so much. I am so pumped up. I am ready to go. I am so excited for this video.
What's up?
This is I love it. All right, I'm excited about it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. As long as we're all on the same page. This is the spreadsheet. This is the spreadsheet, and all that you need to do is fill in. Oh, I hope I didn't fill in stuff. Okay. This is the spreadsheet. Starting that part again. Take 2. Cut.
Looking to do a longer trip? Just do some math. Just do some math to get your.
So that means that I hate the word so much. Sorry if you can hear the sirens. We're not going to jail.
What? Hi, kitty. What do you got to tell us? So many things to say.